Okay, so the last mode is what Lenovo calls the tablet mode, which, as you can see, is basically flipped the screen all the way around, where we have the keyboard on the front and then your tablet screen here in the back. So it can be used just as you would, I guess, with a normal tablet. So as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk a little bit about the keyboard and maybe just give you guys a good view of how it's laid out. So it's more or less a chiclet style keyboard, and as you may be able to see if I get in here a little bit closer, the keys aren't flat. They do have a little bit of a concave feel to them. So just to give you a better look at the overall layout, I thought that I would just kind of scan over the keyboard so that you guys can see it. Shown from this angle, I also wanted to show you what I was talking about earlier when we were looking at the different modes of the PC. Now, as you can see here, the keys are pressable and they're just a hair above what they call the keyboard frame. So when you push, you can see that the key more or less becomes flat with the frame behind it. So I don't know how well we're going to be able to see this on the video, but right now I'm in the tent mode, and you may or may not be able to see, if I can get in here a little bit, that the keyboard frame, sorry for the jerky camera, the keyboard frame has been lifted up to, so I guess even with the height of the keys. The idea behind this is that as this keyboard frame lifts, it prevents pushing of any of the keys on the keyboard. So if you are in tent or stand or tablet mode, you can't push any of these keys in, and apparently this prevents accidental typing. I powered up the machine, and I thought while we were on the topic of the keyboard, I would show you that this laptop also comes with a backlit keyboard. And similar to the Y50 model, it's got two modes. So this mode is off, and if I hit function spacebar, you can see that this is like level 1 of the two different modes of the backlit keyboard. You know, it's hard to see with my bright overhead lights, but you may be able to see the little white LEDs under the keys. And if I hit the function key and spacebar one more time, it goes to the next brightest level, which is pretty hard to tell from this video. Unlike the Y50 that I have, these backlit keys only illuminate more or less under the key. It does not illuminate any of the letters or anything else besides just under the key. While we have the machine booted up, I thought that I would run through a handful of the system specifications for you. So as you can see, I got some of the system properties up. This particular Lenovo Yoga ThinkPad has a 4th generation Intel Core i5, and while we're sitting here looking at this, as you can see, there's 8 gigs of PC3 DDR SD RAM, and it's a 64-bit operating system. Now, one thing you'll probably see right away is this machine has Windows 7 on it. If you go and look at the Lenovo website, all of these Yoga ThinkPads and even the other Yoga IdeaPads, they all ship with Windows 8. Since this is not my computer, the person who owns this laptop, their IT department, for whatever reason, reflashed this machine with Windows 7. Given the fact that it's a touch PC, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but hey, whatever IT departments do, that's what they do. So next I thought I would just talk about the display. It is a 12.5 inch FHD IPS display. It has a maximum of 1920 by 1080p. This particular machine is set to 16 by 900. Again, not sure why they would do that. Maybe it's easier to see at this resolution, perhaps. But again, I'm not going to change it. It's not my PC, but I just want to show you some of the available modes that you have. So the storage on this PC shipped with a Samsung SCSI disc device, which I looked at this, I guess, model number, serial number, what have you, and at least it appears that it is a solid state drive, and most of these yogas ship with solid state drives, so I'm going to go ahead and make the assumption that it is. In the middle here you can see 256, so this model has a 250 gig solid state hard drive in it. Up here near the top we have a integrated 720p HD webcam. So for the audio, it has a Connexent Smart Audio HD. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I really haven't tested out the audio. I'm not sure how great it sounds yet on this laptop, but one of the things I did want to show you is that it does ship with a couple of interesting enhancements, if you will, to the normal speakers. So the first thing you'll see is that it comes with this Dolby Home Theater version 4. I also had this, and I guess have this, on my Lenovo Y50, and it offers some neat things. You can get like some kind of faked stereo surround sound and amplified bass and what have you. The other enhancement that I thought was interesting and wanted to show was this 3D headphone. I haven't tried this. Maybe it's great, but it talks about how if you enable the 3D headphones, it kind of gives you a more surround sound experience and improves long-term listening comfort. Well, in my opinion, that probably matters about the type of headphones you're wearing, but oh well, hey, maybe it works. So a couple of other miscellaneous items I'd like to point out is this laptop ships with a Intel dual band wireless AC 7260 for your Wi-Fi connections. Now, you may remember or recall from when I was talking about all the different input-output ports on either side of the machine that I never did mention an RJ45 jack. This particular Yoga does not ship with RJ45. In order to do that, it requires that you have probably a USB dongle, which allows you to connect to the wired Ethernet. The other thing for screen navigation is here in the middle you'll see that this particular Yoga, and probably I would guess most, ship with this track point. Also down here we have the touch/click pad. I will say from my first use, the thing that threw me off the most is that the left and right buttons are at the top. I'm assuming that they do that so that when you're on the trackpad, your thumb is right here at the buttons. At least that's what seems to make the most sense to me. But if you're just using the trackpad, it was hard for me to get used to not having also the buttons down here. The only other thing to, I guess, throw in here is that this laptop is also Bluetooth compatible. It has Bluetooth version 4.0. So I'm not sure how well it will show up on the video, and hopefully I can keep my hand steady here while I do this. But I thought that I would maybe display how some of the touch is used with just your finger. So down here I'll click the start button, opens that up, and I thought that I would just maybe go into Paint. So here in Paint, you know, I thought maybe this would give a good idea of how the touch goes. So I thought maybe we could just draw a couple of lines with the touch, and you know, it's okay if, I guess it feels like a tablet. So next I thought I would take a look at the digitizer pen and see how that works. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the digitizer pen. We'll go with Paint again, and we'll draw a couple of lines. I mean, this feels real accurate. I mean, I feel like I can, you know, write stuff, which is pretty cool. It's a little bit tricky, and maybe this button that's on the digitizer pen, I thought that it was for right click, so like if you hold in that button and touch, I believe that it performs a right click. I suppose we could test that out. So let's close this guy. And so without holding that button, let me see if I can focus in on it at all. So this is the button that I was talking about right above my finger there. Without that button, just pushing it on the screen in general is just like kind of left click and holding. Now if I push in that button, if I can find it, so right now I'm pushing in the button with my thumb, and if I do this and click, it'll bring up the right click menu just like it would with a right click mouse. The other thing that to point out, if I can get it open, is over here on the left hand side, or maybe depending on the rotation, it'll bring up some different things that you can do, and I believe that you can write this stuff in here and it will go and you can insert that into like Word documents in it. As you can see, it'll turn it into words and sentences that you're wanting to use. Neat tool. May not ship with all of them. I'm assuming it does. Here I have the laptop in stand mode, and I thought that to give just a quick demonstration of the screen rotation that I would show it more or less in landscape mode like this. And then as we flip this guy over, so now as you can see, we're in kind of a portrait mode. Now, the one thing that I did want to show is the screen rotation lock button that we talked about earlier. So let me go up here and engage that, which is this button right here. And it gave us a little indication down there at the bottom if you caught that quick. So now if we were to rotate this guy back down, it will not auto rotate to a landscape mode. Last thing I wanted to talk about is the power supply. This little nugget right here is the power supply for the Yoga. And just as a size comparison, I wanted to put my Y50 power supply up here as well, so that you could kind of get a good size comparison of the two. So that is the two from the top. And as you can tell, the Y50 power supply is quite a bit larger than the Yoga power supply. I also wanted to give you some dimensions of the power supply. So it's somewhere right in between 3.5, 3 3/4 inch long. And I would say that it's about 1 3/4 inches wide. And maybe just under 1 1/4 inches deep. So pretty small, pretty portable. So this is the Lenovo Yoga ThinkPad Ultrabook. I hope you've enjoyed what we've talked about. Feel free to leave any comments, leave a like and subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff. And we will have more reviews coming soon. And if you guys think of anything that you'd like to see with this laptop, like I said, leave a comment and I can get a video going on it. So thanks everybody.